Okay, the title of this message is Little Monsters. The title may be a little misleading, but not totally. I'll show in the end how it connects. But a person's in-law called them and was screaming at them over the phone about how bad their particular child was. And the Christian, after a little while, started screaming back, defending. And the screams went back and forth. It got uglier and uglier, and the relationship was strained, and I don't think they've never talked, unless it was just a minor greeting, since then. What should the believer have done? The believer should have hit what I call an emotional break. Not let the in-law arouse you, or like poking the bear. You know, if you're the bear, don't let anybody poke the bear and get you, like a grizzly bear. Don't let anybody stir you up. Put on the emotional brakes and say, what would Jesus Christ do in this situation? Let's go to Luke 6. Some of these verses are very similar ideas in other parts of the Bible too, but we'll just look at Luke for this moment. Luke 6, verse 27. Get an idea, what would Jesus do in this situation? Luke 6, 27. But I say unto you, which hear, love your enemies, do good to them which hate you, bless those that curse you. We assume they're verbally, laying it to you. And pray for them which despitefully use you. Usually this is done in verbal terms in most cases. Well, let's face it, that's not the natural thing. It's not easy to do. Our human nature is built when someone attacks, you counterattack. And they yell, you yell louder. And they yell louder, and you yell louder, and then it ends it gets ugly. Tit for tat. And especially if you hit them back with a little bit of truth, well, you think so, what about that? A little bit of truth in an argument actually makes it worse, if you understand what I mean. You all are not so good, what about, you get the general idea, slice. But what if you responded in the example I gave softly? Actually, they've done a few experiments. Someone yells at you and you respond softly, kindly, and you keep it up for a few minutes. Usually their anger will dissipate and they'll get softer and softer. Now you maybe can't win them over totally, but really what Christ is saying in several places in the Bible is overcome evil with kindness. It improves the situation. It's not the natural thing to do, but that's the Christian thing to do. Verse 41, Luke 6. Why, behold you the mote that is in your brother's eye, but perceive not the beam that is in yours. In other words, he's got a little piece of thing in his eye, and you got a big thing in your eye. Either you can say to your brother, let me pull the mote out of your eye, when you've not, noticed the beam that is in your own eye. You hypocrite. First cast the beam out of your own eye, and then maybe you can see clearly to help your brother. In other words, we should be more concerned with our problems, our weaknesses, our faults, than slamming the other guy about his faults, their kids' faults, their side of the family's faults, whatever you want to put it. And it's easy to see the bad in other people. You've heard, well, I would never do anything like that. Yeah, it's easy to see other people's mistakes. I think it actually is harder to be objective about yourself, at least in some things. In condemning people, that's kind of easier to do. But our number one goal should be self. Controlling self and not letting someone turn you into the monster. You know what I mean? Poke the bear and then he gets real grizzly. Don't let anybody poke you and turn you into the monster, the little monster. Luke 6, we're going to go back to verse 32. We'll stay in this same section most of the time. For if you love them which love you, what thank you? For sinners also love those that love them. Verse 33. And if you do to them which do good to you, what thank you? For sinners also do even the same. In other words, you could even go to gangsters, drug lords, I suppose even pimps. Who do you think are the worst criminals? And they're probably nice to their co-workers or their allies in the gang wars. Whatever you want. It takes nothing to be nice to your allies and people that support you. That's raw human nature. God wants us on a higher plane where we're nicer to people that aren't nice to us. Verse 34. And if you lend to them who you hope to receive, in other words, you give them money, you're going to get it back and maybe a little bit of influence and interest too. What have you? For sinners also lend to sinners and receive as much again. In other words, they're going to get something out of it. It's not really a big deal. Verse 35. But love your enemies. Do good to love your enemies. Do good. Lend, hoping for nothing again. In other words, help people even when there's no obvious benefit to yourself. And your reward shall be great, and you shall be children of the highest, for he is kind unto the unthankful and to the evil. You know, I heard that quote from Martin Luther King that was on the Ram ad, the Super Bowl, about he who will be the greatest is those that serve others. And he did a great job of it. But I'll bet you, from listening to the news people, a lot of them didn't realize that's from the Bible. Those were the words of Jesus Christ. And I got the impression at least half the news people talking about it didn't know where it was from. And I couldn't understand why anybody could complain about that. I mean, if you want to be great, serve others. But there are people complaining about it. I'm still mystified about how petty some people are. I don't know, maybe it's just me. It did not make any sense at all. I'm still kind of, as I say, it just amazes me. We want to copy God and do what God wants us to do. Our goal should someday to be baby gods. Now is the time to practice being godly. Here's a corny story called Mrs. Right. Sitting in the bar, George asked his 40-year-old friend John, he says, John, how come you've never gotten married? John says, well, I haven't met the right woman yet. And so he says, well, what are you looking for, says George. I mean, what are you looking for? And he says, well, the woman I marry has got to be pretty, real pretty, a good cook, a good housekeeper. She's got to know how to handle money and have a nice, pleasant personality and a lot of money. She's got to have money, and a nice big house wouldn't hurt either. George, a woman like that would be crazy to marry you. He said, I don't care about crazy, just the money. Well, our relationship with God is kind of a marriage relationship with Christ. And Christ does care if we're crazy. He wants us to have the right mindset. So he wants us to be able to put the brakes on when somebody pokes the bear and they get you stirred up, that you're able to stop your emotions. Instead of striking back, you calmly reply softly and kindly. You may not agree with them, and there are times you need to probably get a lawyer. We're not saying never defend yourself, but in general, he's saying be generous and be forgiving. Verse 37, Luke 6. Judge not, that you not be judged. Condemn not. And that's a key word, condemn not, because verbally you can really condemn people. You and your family are you shall not be condemned. Forgive, and you shall be forgiven. That's kind of an attitude, a forgiving attitude. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. In other words, if you're generous to other people, even if there's no obvious reward from them back to you, God is going to bless you. By the way, in the Old Testament, as I understand, there was no IRS. if you tithe or you gave offerings to God, you did it because you wanted to and you believed God would bless you. But if you didn't do it, nobody came after you, you just didn't get blessed by God. In other words, when you have a giving attitude, God will bless you. That's what he's saying. And that's being nice to other people, even if they don't necessarily deserve it. They're not doing anything for you. With the same measure that you meet withal, it shall be measured to you again. The devil wants to create in us little monsters. He wants to poke us and provoke us, like poking the bear, and suck us away from God. I want to tell you a story. Now, we heard this on C-SPAN on television. There was a book called The First Man to Escape Camp Number 14. This is one of those gulags, horrible prison camps in North Korea, and there are a bunch of them. And it's a gruesome story. I'm just going to give a real short version of the gruesome story. This young man escaped when he was about 21. He was born in the camp. And he said they gave him 7 rules they taught him from a little kid. Rule number 1 is if anybody tries to escape, you turn them in. The cruelty was terrible. They starved. One scene that's kind of, I don't know if this makes any sense to you, but they lived on a little gruel of soup with cabbage and a little bit of stuff in it, but not much. They're all skinny and starving. You know, you've seen concentration camps, and it's cold up there in the mountains, and they kind of work them to death, and they'll eventually die out. But you know, no one's going to die there of old age, or highly unlikely. I guess it's a spinoff from the Siberian gulags of Stalin, and North Korea is the last Stalinist regime to exist. Really cruel, but the part that was interesting, his mother. By the way, he said he didn't really love his mother. He and his mother were rivals for what little bit of scraps of food they were there. That's the camp he was born in. It was really a horrible place. But his mother and I think his uncle had planned to escape. And she worked in the rice fields, but they weren't allowed to take any. But she hid some in her pockets somehow and had a little bit of rice. And that was going to be what they would eat after they got through the electric fence, you know, as part of the escape plan. And he heard them talking about it. And he was so mad because, he lusted after rice. I know we think of rice as nothing. I'm giving you from his perspective. Now, this little kid grew up there. And so he did, quote, the right thing. He turned in his parents. Matter of fact, his first memory is an execution. They didn't let him congregate in groups much, only when there was an execution. He came to a big execution. He saw some people executed. I believe he was there, saw his mother and uncle executed, and his father later executed. His father apologized for him for allowing him to be born in such a horrible place. And when he did escape, he escaped over another guy's dead body on the electric fence because he heard there was food in China unlike what he'd ever seen in his life. And when he finally got out, and he realized what he had done, he was ashamed for years to admit to people he turned in his own parent. The camp turned him into a little monster. Now, in time, he learned to forgive himself, and of course his growth is stunted, and he's bow-legged because of all he suffered. Well, I'm telling that story because I want to make the point. They claim that in some of these communist regimes, and maybe a few other bad places, they're actually raising children to be little monsters, to turn in their own parents. Now, actually, it didn't work out so well. He thought he'd get rewarded for doing it, but it didn't work out for him. He finally realized how evil they were. He got tortured, and as I said, he even got a little bit lucky on his escape. But the point is, when he finally got to America and saw what I call a real good world and kindness, he realized how terrible he was. And you have to really feel sorry for him. We're probably thinking, a kid who could turn in his own parents? Well, if you grew up in that kind of concentration camp, you might understand it better. And actually, I've read stories about the death camps that the Nazis had in World War II, Auschwitz. You'd be surprised things people will do when they're starving and tortured. And the point I'm making is, while obviously we're not in that bad a situation, I don't want to assume that we are or anything like that, but the devil would like to turn us into little monsters. In other words, he'd like to use somebody to poke us and then get us mad. So we'll rip into them, and we need to not let the devil do that to us. Even if we might argue, well, it's justified. These people said that about me, they deserve it. And I just think we need to realize what the Bible says. Vengeance is mine. Leave it up to God. He'll work it out. Don't worry about it. In the end, even if somebody gets away with something. Now, if you need to get a lawyer for certain things to protect your property, you understand. But even then, I wouldn't hate them. If I need to get a lawyer to protect my property, I'd do it. But I wouldn't let anybody turn me into a little monster. I'm as hateful as they are. Or maybe even more so. Ephesians 4:26, because that's what the devil wants. Ephesians 4:26. And Paul tells the Ephesians, be you angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. Neither give place to the devil. What he is saying is, I know the wording may be a little awkward there. He's saying, you know, if you get angry with someone, solve the problem before nightfall. Work it out. Like if you and another neighbor or friend or another brother, work it out before nightfall. Talk to them kindly, methodically. Try to work it out if you can. And Paul would say, even if you can't work it out, don't go to bed angry and mad. I hate him. Ugh. That's what the devil wants. He wants to turn you into a little monster. Try to resolve the issue. And I think Paul would say, never, ever, never, ever be embittered over whatever somebody said to you, did to you, or they caused your boss to get you fired, or they ruined your reputation. You know, I guess people are doing things on Facebook that others are hating them for it, and they're at least, I'm told people are committing suicides over stuff on Facebook. I mean, that's what I saw, and I guess it's true in great numbers. No matter what they say to you on Facebook, email, in person, on the phone, never let them get you embittered. Don't ruminate over it all night long. Ruminate it, you know, I got slighted. I'm going to hate them the rest of my life. And Satan is saying, yes, yes, I'm creating another little monster. That's what he wants. The devil is trying to create in us little unforgiving monsters. Every time somebody says something ugly to you, answer softly. Every time somebody is mean, try to overcome evil with kindness as best you can. And every time you overcome evil with kindness, you're thwarting the devil. Kindness is being more like God. Anger, if they can stir it, especially hatred and long-term anger, we're creating little monsters, and Satan says, yes, that's what I want. And you know, Satan must love those terrible gulags in North Korea, and there may be some small, lesser ones in some other countries still left. If someone stabs you in the back and keeps you from advancing, don't become a little monster. Just if all you can do is just forgive them and pray about it and don't worry about it, just say, I'm not going to become a little monster, not us, no matter what happens. Also, if you're a humble person, I think you can handle a slight better. The more self-important you are, and then somebody gives you a slight, the more you're enraged. Do you know who I am? I am somebody special in this town. How dare you? And then you get into a real hateful rant. Or I've seen this happen. There's some project done, it's a real good project, a bunch of people were involved, but whoever did the speaking publicly for the group, he thanked maybe 3 people who maybe were out front more, and you didn't get any credit. And man, are you mad. But if you're humble, really sometimes in life, people know how to push to the front and they get the credit, and a lot of other people do stuff and they don't get the credit. You've seen that. Well, if it happens to you, don't let the devil get you hateful, angry. Why didn't he acknowledge me? Why did so-and-so get to the front so they got the credit? What about my credit? Well, if you don't get the credit, life doesn't end. You can mention it to somebody. I helped out too, but whether you get credit, public recognition, that's life. And I know it's not easy to do that, but it happens to most people sooner or later. If you're humble, you're not so angry. Let's go to 1 Peter 4. And of course, Peter became a very spiritual man. But when that statement when he says, "Christ, get away from me, I'm not a man of clean lips, a righteous man," Christ already knew that, when he realized Christ was God. But Peter, having been a mature Christian at this point, 1 Peter 4, verse 5 through 8. 1 Peter 4, 5. Who shall give account to him that is ready to judge the quick and the dead? For this cause was the gospel preached also to them that are dead, that they might be judged according to men in the flesh, but also according to the God of spirits. But the end of all these things at hand, be you sober. And that could be also translated humble and respectful. And watch unto prayer, and above all things, have fervent charity or love among yourselves, for charity shall cover a multitude of sins. And he's saying use hospitality when appropriate, because we need to do that kind of thing. And he's also telling us to resist the devil. When you go on to the next verse, you're going to say, what do I mean by resist the devil? I think he says if the devil is trying to poke you and hating someone, being mad because you didn't get enough credit, or whatever you didn't get, enough money, or whatever the thing is, the devil loves to poke the bear and turn you to a roaring little monster. Resist the devil. And he says if you flee from the devil, he'll move away from you. If he sees that he can't poke you easily, but if he can poke you and you become a monster, he'll poke you again. He'll poke you a number of times to get you all stirred up so that you're the angry man around the workshop who's always mad about one thing or another. Anger management can, if you don't control your anger, you could mess up your life. So we must all learn how to put on the emotional brakes, and we'll be better off. God wants us to obey him, and that includes obeying him when he says to love your enemy and to love those that speak badly about us. And I know that's not easy, but we have to obey God, obey Jesus even in that. Conquer the monster in us, overcome the bear with love, overcome evil with godly kindness.